Hello and welcome since we are, officially getting started here. Welcome to the last day of the Film Friendly Texas Forum, y'all. It's always been a tongue twister, but we finally are here at the last day. We're very excited to have everyone. My name is Matt Miller. I'm the digital media production consultant here at the TFC, and I am joined by my colleague, Michelle Habecker, our production incentive specialist. And we also have Stephen McCaig and Kim LeBlanc behind the scenes, sort of producing the show. So thanks to everyone for joining. First, I want to take a quick second to thank our sponsors, Visit Dallas as our Film Friendly Texas Forum title sponsor, and AMP Studios as our Film Friendly Texas Forum media sponsor. I got to see firsthand some of the fine work that AMP did at South Fork Ranch up in Parker. So it's great to have them on board. And we are very excited to have all of y'all here today. So first of all, again, welcome. We do ask during the presentation that you make sure you're muted and that your camera is turned off. We are going to have a Q&A at the end where you're able to kind of be more interactive and, feel free to put your questions in the chat and everything like that. But for right now, if you wouldn't mind typing your name and the Texas community you're representing in the chat window, just so that we can kind of get a view of who is here. Unfortunately, I can't see the chat, but I am sure we're getting great representation from all across the state. And again, we are very, very excited to have y'all here. And so if you want to start thinking now, if you have any digital media questions, hopefully this presentation will answer some. But if any that you already had coming into this and you still don't kind of get the answers that you're looking for, make sure to save those. We're very interested to, answer any questions that you may have near the end. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. So this is something that probably most everyone knows at this point. We are in our last day of the Film Friendly Forum, but just a quick recap. So who are we at the Texas Film Commission? We are a state agency housed in the Office of the Governor's Division of Economic Development and Tourism. We were created in 1971, but we have a rich media production history that goes back for more than 100 years. And we are very well positioned as one of the most established film commissions around. And of course, even though we are based here right outside the Capitol, we serve every corner of the state, from the Rio Grande Valley to the Panhandle. And so we are the Texas Film Commission, and I did put that in quotes for a reason. So what do? We promote, assist the media production industries of Texas. We facilitate and foster job creation and encourage statewide economic development and tourism through media production, and we market Texas as a competitive premier global media production destination. That is a mouthful, but that is what we do every single day. And so, even though we are the Texas Film Commission, we serve much more than just film. Obviously, that includes TV, commercials, and obviously digital media, which is what we are, going to be talking about here today. And so we have 6 questions that I hope we can kind of have answered, or at least start to answer, since they are very large questions by the time our hour is up. So we're going to start with the basics. What is digital media? Simple enough. Secondly, why Texas for these industries? There's a whole lot of places these companies can go. So what makes Texas unique for them to land here? What can these digital media industries do for your community? How can your community become more digital media friendly? So hopefully some action items that you can start implementing, or start talking and thinking about within your individual communities. Fifth, what are some of the unique opportunities that digital media currently provides? And finally, how can our office help? We are always here to help, and so if you ever have, a project come to you directly, we want to make sure that, you're aware of our programs so that, they're aware of them as well. So let's dive right in. So when we say digital media, what do we really mean? So it is a very large sector, but we're going to break it down into basically 4 sections that we're going to talk about. The first would be visual effects, or VFX for short. And I am going to be talking quite a bit, so I'm probably going to use a lot of acronyms and stuff to kind of shorten everything, but I'll make sure you know what those are before, because I'm not used to speaking this much, I will be completely honest. Second, we're going to go into animation. Third, video games, and then last, extended reality, or XR for short. And if you're not sure what 1 or 2 of these are, or even have like a vague sense of what they are, don't worry. We're going to break these down. And this graphic on the left, I just want to touch upon, is actually something that we, made to highlight this idea of convergence, since our industries are sort of overlapping more and more, and we're no longer kind of siloed. So you can have motion capture for both film and video games, which uses the same technology, or TV shows that have auxiliary podcasts, or video games with a VR component. So there's a lot of cross-pollination that is happening. So it's a very exciting time for sure. So let's start with visual effects. So visual effects is the integration of live action footage and generated imagery to create people, places, or things which look realistic but would be dangerous, expensive, impractical, time-consuming, or just plain impossible to capture on film. So the first one here is computer-generated imagery, or CGI. So this is actually the designing and creating of environments, characters, creatures, props, explosions, anything that, again, would be dangerous or impossible or time consuming to make. And anyone who has seen any Marvel movie recently knows just kind of the increasing importance of CGI on the end product. So, I don't have a percentage, but I would guess probably most every single shot in the Avengers has some sort of CGI within it. And some of the most exciting stuff is when you don't even know that they're using it. Compositing, on the other hand, is kind of how everything is layered together. So, you have, I put up Sin City here. It was a very famous example because of their use of green screens. And so basically what you're doing is easily replacing this bright green color in post, but the lighting and the physical props and everything pretty much remain. So that's why you can go from this still on the left of Josh Brolin in a completely made up car, which looks rather silly, to, the final frame over here, which is very moody and dramatic, of course, for Sin City. But then, something kind of interesting happened. You jump forward, over 15 years or so, and you have something that comes along that's kind of like green screen 2.0, or really like 10.0 when you think about it. Basically, what volume walls are, you're creating a virtual background in real time during the physical shoot on set using the precise positioning of the camera. So it leads to much more realistic lighting and depth of field. You can see here this example from The Mandalorian. That entire background behind that stormtrooper is completely digital. It's made up, they're in a soundstage. But just watching the end product, you would have no idea because of how realistic it looks. So some of a very exciting, technology and times being utilized in projects right now. And then finally, motion capture. So this is, when you see behind the scenes photos, for example, here, the Texas produced Alita Battle Angel, you see really silly photos like this. It's whenever you see performers wearing like leotards with ping pong ball looking things attached to their joints and black dots on their face. But what this is allowing is basically the cameras to capture hyper realistic data to overlay CGI elements on top of it, because computers are really good, but they are a lot better if they have that raw data already there. So moving on to animation. So the first one is kind of a traditional, it's like stop motion, claymation is another word for it. Basically, it's creating the illusion of movement through inanimate objects by slightly moving the models and taking thousands of photos. So this is, again, a very popular example, Wallace and Gromit, Paranorman. Leica, and such like that. So it's a very interesting type of animation. Traditional animation is sort of hand drawn and sometimes actually painted on celluloid film. It's pretty rare, but it's not completely extinct these days. But when you think of Looney Tunes or Alice in Wonderland, such as the example here, or even the early Simpsons, this is what we're talking about. And interestingly enough, The Simpsons actually around season 13 transitioned to 2D computer animation. So, if you watch something earlier, you can kind of see the subtle differences in the types. This example here is from Seis Manos. It's from Austin's very own Powerhouse Animation. And that's an example of 2D computer animation. So there's no, hand drawing of physical elements. This is all done on the computer. And similarly, of course, we have 3D computer animation, and obviously Toy Story was the very biggest and first film to really kind of popularize this technology, and it's only grown by leaps and bounds. Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius was a Texas-produced film that utilized this kind of technology. And just to give you a sense of the financial impact on these movies, Frozen 2 made $1.5 billion in box office revenue worldwide. And that doesn't even include merchandising or licensing, which we know it's Disney, so that's going to have a very large, portion of it too. But very, very huge market and audience for these types of films. Next is video games. This is sort of a big layered subject. It's a lot of what we talk about. I find the best way to divide video games is kind of by genre and mode of consumption. So first I have here, and of course there's multiple subgenres that we could go into, but for the sake of brevity, we're gonna, keep it on the surface here. We have educational. This is a Minecraft, where it can actually teach kids to code within the game. So sort of sneaking in learning with entertainment, which we're going to talk about a little bit more later on. Then you have like action adventure. Something like Tomb Raider, or This is Borderlands from Frisco's Gearbox Studios. Obviously, esports and multiplayer. This is Fortnite. Anyone with like a grandchild or a niece or nephew, knows this game very well. And then, of course, we have role-playing games, RPGs for short. This is Star Wars: The Old Republic. That's from BioWare Austin, from a company here. Then we have, sports and racing, very popular esports games for obvious reasons. And we'll go into more about esports in a bit. And then my personal favorite is like platformer. This is something like when you think of Super Mario World or Donkey Kong, or even this is a screenshot from Super Lucky's Tale, which was done by Playful Corp up in McKinney. And so of course there's more, but these are kind of the biggest kind of chunks of games that you can kind of break it up into. And then when we talk about mode, obviously we used to go to places called arcades, which are few and far between, but they still exist these days to enjoy these games. But then of course everything sort of changed when consoles made their way into the home. And this is a photo of the latest consoles, the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. I believe this is the 8th generation, technically. And so, of course, that opened up a whole new, market for video games. Handheld, like the old Game Boys, or even, the current Nintendo Switch, are very popular. The Switch in particular for blurring the lines kind of between console and handheld. So, it can act as a console at home, but then also if whoever wants to play it, while they're in the car, obviously not driving, or anything like that, they have that there as well. But then, of course, lastly, but certainly not least, we have mobile. It's very, very popular and a huge audience because it doesn't require any additional hardware. Most of us these days own a smartphone, and so there's all these apps that are just waiting to be downloaded, which is why many companies go that route, because they know of how big the built-in market is. And just to give you a scope of how far-reaching this industry is, In 2020, all global games market, which includes everything, was valued at $122.7 billion, with 67% of US adults playing video games last year, and 76% of US minors playing video games. So, long gone are the days of like parents yelling up to their kids to stop playing, since both generations now are likely, gamers. So even kind of having that bonding experience is a really cool thing. And then lastly, we're going to talk about extended reality. So this is augmented reality for short, AR. It's sort of the natural world overlaid with digital content on top of it. So it's mostly observational, very minimal interaction. Frequently, it's based on phones and tablets. So, a very popular example here is Pokemon Go, or even AR apps, maps apps that can kind of overlay the directions of where you need to go using your smartphone camera. And then we're moving on to virtual reality, or VR. So that's a completely immersive view. So you have no view of the physical world. It's all digital. Obviously, that's usually going to require special hardware like the Oculus Rift or PlayStation VR. And a lot of times they have specialized controllers so you can interact with the digital world. If you've ever heard or played Beat Saber, that's a really popular game. And then, of course, there's real estate applications which allow virtual tours of spaces in VR. So you don't have to actually go to the house where you're going to, possibly purchase. So, and then finally, we have mixed reality, or MR. And this is sort of similar to augmented, but it's more immersive because the physical and the digital assets sort of interact. So you can actually manipulate and interact like digital objects that appear to be in real life. So for example, a digital ball can be bouncing and actually fall off of a physical desk that is sitting in front of you because it's using real-time sensors. So it's sort of aware of its surroundings. So it's particularly exciting out of all of these three. And that usually requires special hardware. This is an example of Merge Cube. Then of course we have a high-end example, the Microsoft HoloLens, which has a lot of military, healthcare applications. And then of course, there is a gaming aspect. It's not quite huge yet because this particular type of hardware is a lot more expensive, but that is definitely something that we're going to be seeing over the next few years, continuing to push into gaming. And so, why Texas? You sort of know or have an idea of what digital media is. So why Texas? The real reason is because it's already here. Texas has kind of laid the groundwork for these industries to thrive. We have a very affordable cost of living, especially when compared to a few of the other states in which these industries are, kind of prevalent. We don't have state income tax, so that makes it both very desirable for both employees and corporations moving here. As you can see here, we're number 2 in the US for video game and XR software development employment. And we're number 3 in the US for special effects artists and animator employment. So already, very high on the list of these jobs. Then of course we have 130 Texas-based animation, post-production, and VFX companies already here. And then 35 higher ed programs with 10 varsity esports teams. So we also have that unique pipeline for students into the workforce. So, we're all in Texas, and, what can it do for your specific community? I want to talk a little bit about the workforce. Typically, these types of jobs, the people who work in them are typically degree holding. The majority have at least a bachelor's degree, but there are, of course, many career paths for non-degree holding and even self-taught skilled artists. So in that sense, we're putting the A in STEM. So we're really trying to put the visual arts, the visual design and new media into the science, technology, engineering, and math to make it sort of this idea of STEAM. Very highly paid, very highly skilled. The average annual salary for digital media occupations, you can see here, video game designers is around $90,000, and multimedia artists and animators is around $83,000. These are very long-term, they're much more stable positions for a creative industry, since they're around 1 to 3 years. So both brick and mortar companies as well as employees are kind of more interested in putting down roots, since these are sort of longer term commitments. And a lot of ideas come from that digital media is just video games. That couldn't be further from the truth. There are so many applications beyond entertainment that entertainment is likely going to be a very big driver, because that's a very big market, but there's so many other applications. So I wanted to talk about a few of those here. First would be like education, engaging with students in a completely new way to reinforce ideas visually. So if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a 3D anatomical model is worth a lot more. Just kind of really trying to reach students in a much more engaging way can lead to some really great results. Next, we have healthcare. Everything from applications like physical therapy to immersive VR apps being developed for helping to connect nursing home residents to cope with struggling with isolation. So there's a lot of really cool things that are being done in that arena as well, and a lot of studies happening about the positive effects that can have on people. Training, as an example here, Walmart, among other companies, has used VR kind of extensively to train associates in 3 areas, such as new technology, compliance, and then soft skills like empathy and customer service. So a lot of really cool things happening, at the corporate level too. 3D manufacturing. This is actually a tiny home from a company called Icon. This is it's an Austin-based startup. They have several of these tiny homes actually at Community First Village, which is a nonprofit that helps ease the transition of people struggling with homelessness by providing a stable community, learning skill sets, and access to jobs. So a lot of really cool things happening there. And Icon actually also has programs with both the Texas Military Department and NASA to produce 3D printed barracks and even prototypes for extraterrestrial homes that are less expensive to produce and more energy efficient. So, thinking far, far into the future to solve those problems of tomorrow today. And then UX and UI design, data visualization, and then accessibility. So accessibility is a really cool one, because these technologies, everyone has this great pocket computer in there around them at all times. This is the Seeing AI app. This is a program that actually uses the smartphone's camera and AI intelligence to verbally describe what it's seeing for people with visual impairments. So you can scan a document and have it read to you. You can scan a barcode of a product and have it tell you the nutritional facts, or even scan people and it can describe them if you know them, what their emotions are. So it's really, really cool, that it's opening up this technology for more and more people. And then tourism, think about if you had like a virtual walking tour of, say, like your town square, or 3D photos of different hotspots around your communities, engaging people in these different ways to kind of show them that these industries aren't just an afterthought to your community, can lead to a lot more engaging sort of ways to get tourist dollars. And so here's a fun little case study for a company called Triceum. They're an award-winning video game company using their games as a way to teach subjects like calculus and history. So they were founded in 2014 and they are based in Bryan College Station. They have partnered with the Live Lab at Texas A&M University, and they have maintained that partnership by sponsoring research, mentoring, and hiring students directly out of college. They are a National Science Foundation SBIR grant recipient, And then most importantly, they showed that 79% of students who played variant limits, which is the screenshot here on your screen, vastly improved their understanding of the concept of limits. So if I were to ever have to go back and learn limits, I would probably have to play this game, because I have admittedly forgot everything I know from calculus probably. And so moving on, this is kind of a first of all, it's just really fun. And it's kind of a concrete example, very practical example of how digital media can have positive impacts on communities.
This is Carr's Corner back here.
And nestled in the corner of the gift shop, it's where the old meets the new. That's right, this historic place, it was featured in the animated movie Cars, and now kids get to live out their Lightning McQueen dreams.
Where the kids migrate automatically when they come in.
And those old gas pumps, well, they're replaced with the recent addition of Tesla electric pumps, all merging the past, present, and future.
We're the first town as you come to if you're traveling west through Texas. Since we're the first town, we want to make sure that everybody gets a big Texas welcome when they come here, and that's our goal.
Keeping the rich history alive here at the U Drop In. Stephen Graves, ABC.
So you can see
7
here
News.
the sound was a little off, but I think you can still get the idea of, that was from Pixar's Cars, which was released in 2006. And that video from the U Drop in Shamrock, Texas, is from 2015. So it's almost, a decade after the movie's release. So, really long-term benefits when it comes to, marketing, promotion, and tourism. Similarly, there was a show on Amazon called Undone back in 2019. And, it featured some place that a few of you may have heard of in San Antonio, the Riverwalk. So, it's sort of creating this magical connection to a very real, very historical location that people can then, go see that they've seen on these digital media projects. And then this is a map from Rockstar Games Red Dead Redemption 2, which is very hard to say, but I've heard it's very fun and features fictional places like New Austin, which is just south of Armadillo, obvious reference there. So again, referencing these real life places in digital games, can lead to interest in tourism about those places, just as much as being featured on like the Road Tripper would, because it creates that link for people that they then want to go and visit. So I wanted to take a second that to dispel this myth, as the last slide hopefully kind of went into. It's this myth that everyone sort of sits at home, plays video games, and doesn't leave their house, that these digital media communities are sort of isolating, and that's completely wrong. They really foster strong communities in real life, or IRL. And, sort of a fun case in point is the idea of cosplay. If anyone has heard of that, where people spend months designing and creating their own costumes completely from scratch in order to share it with others, who enjoy the same digital media stories. So these are hardcore fans that want to really share this community with others, and are really willing to go the distance, literally go anywhere. There's obvious benefits for conferences and hotels. RTX is a conference between 2011 and 2019, which featured up to 70,000 people. They were on hold because of the pandemic, but they do plan to return in 2022. And the esports industry is projected to hit $1.8 billion in evaluation next year. A lot of that revenue flows through media rights, live ticket sales, merchandise, and stuff like that. But most of it, around 70%, comes from sponsorships and advertising. And then here is a photo of Esports Arlington, which is the largest esports facility in North America. So they are incredibly well positioned to get these opportunities in the future for years to come. So very, very exciting time for that whole industry. And how can your specific community become more digital media friendly to prepare for these opportunities. So first, if you want to identify community stakeholders, do you already have stakeholders and existing digital media professionals in your community that you may not even know about? By creating an advisory board, you can help keep the community in touch with the experts and what their needs may be, without having to be the literal expert on every little thing. You can start attending virtual and even some in-person digital media industry events and conferences to hear about upcoming technologies and projects that your community might be a good fit for. Then obviously people have to know about your community, getting your community on the radar of these companies by showing them you're not only interested in their business, but you're ready for it. The last thing we want is this idea of brain drain. So we really want to partner with digital media programs at nearby colleges and universities to retain that emerging talent. Because, the last thing we want is, people to graduate and then immediately go elsewhere with their degree and search for jobs. So it's really becoming apparent that, right out of college, these students, looking to enter the workforce, don't have to make that choice. They can absolutely stay here and have just as many opportunities as they would in other states or jurisdictions. And so another idea is, promoting digital media friendly workspaces. Do you already have digital media friendly businesses like co-working spaces or incubators or anything like that? If so, make sure that those are being promoted front and center. However, your community, if you have a website or social media, make sure that those are, again, front and center. If you want to really be aggressive, perhaps even looking into local incentive programs that your community can offer to even attract a telecommuting workforce. And obviously those are going to be different and look very different for different communities, but is that something that your community is interested in and willing to do? And then finally, investing in or improving existing broadband infrastructure. And obviously something that the pandemic really highlighted was, of course, the need for broadband. And I'm sure everyone kind of knows the general ins and outs, but so I apologize if this is redundant information, but just want to go over it for everyone. Download speeds is the speed at which information travels from the internet to your device, and then upload speed is obviously the opposite, which the information travels from your device to the internet. Upload speeds are always going to be slower than download speeds, but those upload speeds do become much more important for interactive apps like video conferencing, online gaming, cloud storage, and those. So as you can see here, this map shows the coverage that was just released at the end of July of this year from Connected Nation. And this is pretty good coverage. I will say this is 10 megabytes down and 1 megabytes up. That's download and upload speeds. This is okay, but not great. You can have one simultaneous users, one or two rather. You can check email, browse websites, stream music, on one device, no problem. But anything like very large downloads, like games or programs, that can take hours and sometimes days to actually download. Video conferencing and online gaming is pretty choppy and slow, if not impossible. So you can see how something like this, if you're just one person, maybe just fine. But if you have a large office full of people that are doing network heavy things, how these speeds may not be able to work. And then this is where we move up to 25 down and 3 up. This is what the FCC officially designates as broadband or high speed. This is, again, pretty good. You can have 2 to 4 simultaneous users, browsing websites on multiple devices, streaming video, things like that are no problem. Very large downloads can still take a few hours if it's particularly large, but video conferencing and online gaming on one device is no problem. And then, of course, it can go up from there. Obviously, sky's the limit these days. You can have gigabit Ethernet, which is 1,000 megabytes down. But you can see, here, streaming ultra high def videos and, very large downloads can actually finish in minutes, when the speeds go up. But something like this, again, for a business that has multiple people all doing network heavy things, you can see how something like this may not be a luxury. It's actually kind of the floor of what works for, their digital media industries and businesses. And so a fun little case study, this is David and Ginger McCullough. They had some limited internet options a few years ago in Johnson City. So David called around different providers, but, didn't find any solutions that he deemed quite adequate enough. So they thought they could solve this problem. And so, they went ahead and solved it. Hill Country Wireless and Technology provides high-speed, reliable internet to residents and businesses since 2017. They are still locally owned and operated by these two in Johnson City. They have 5 employees, over 400 customers as of June 2019. So those numbers have obviously likely changed. Shortly after setting up shop, they started receiving inquiries, from nearby Stonewall and Blanco as well. So it's this sort of Texas entrepreneurial spirit of like, there's no need to wait for someone else to fix it. We'll just do it ourselves. So it's a great example of what communities can do, not only to become more digital media friendly, but to provide local residents and businesses with better opportunities in education, remote work, remote schooling, and further entrepreneurial growth. And I would be remiss to not talk about or even mention the pandemic. We want this to all be behind us, but digital media content and video games has skyrocketed. That demand, has just exploded over the pandemic. And those companies are expanding their hiring reach all over the country, especially Texas. And so now it's interesting, you kind of have this mobile workforce that, even if you can work completely remotely or even hybrid, it kind of expands the radius that people are willing to live and work. So smaller and mid-sized communities can actually offer some unique advantages like higher quality of life, lower cost of living that larger communities can't. So there are some unique opportunities there. And then, you have this really cool thing of blending and diversifying urban, suburban, exurban, and even rural communities, which leads to, stronger, more diverse, and more prosperous communities overall. And then esports and game development and design, again, provide these pipelines for young adults entering the workforce. So instead of viewing video games as this sort of waste of time, distracting people from the real work, now people can actually make that their work and think of it as a career. So while it's far from a common salary, the highest known paid esports player earns nearly $7 million in 2020. So again, very far from a common salary, but that just gives you an idea of kind of the financial scope of the esports advertising numbers. And, so digital media, specifically media production in Texas, has been a significant source of job creation for Texans. That was true in a pre-COVID economy, and that remains even more true in a post-COVID economy, as I've kind of mentioned here. So you can see here, these are some of the stats that our office has just captured from projects that have just chose to register with our office. So these are just a snapshot. They may even be more than that, but this can show you just how large some of these industries are. And interesting, if you look at this graph here, you can see the number of US video game players skyrocketed from 164 million in 2019, a 30% jump to 2020 at 214 million. And then this year it's at 227 million, which is still a 6% growth, which is still considerable. So these industries are still continuing to grow. So how can our office help? Finally, we have a lot of resources and we want to make sure that you can help us get the word out if companies approach your community directly. So always feel free to send them our way, but it's a good idea to know about a few of these industries. And at this point, I would ask that Michelle come in and talk a little bit about MPDZ and our incentive program. And Michelle, I will drive. So whenever you're ready for the next slide, you just let me know.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. And thank you for the introduction as well. As Matt said, I work with Matt here at the Texas Film Commission, and I am part of our incentives team. And I'm just going to give you some kind of overview of the two incentive programs that our office administers. As Matt mentioned at the very beginning of this, our office is part of the Office of the Governor's Economic Development and Tourism. And everything we're doing here at our office, including these two incentive programs, are about fostering media productions and economic impact for the states and the communities here in Texas. So we have two different incentive programs. They are both administered by our office. They both have rules and requirements for them, but they are two separate programs that do different things. MPDZ is about infrastructure, and TMIP is about the actual content, such as the video games and the TV shows or the commercials that companies are making. So we will move on, and I'll start talking first about MPDZ, which big name is Media Production Development Zone. As mentioned, we like to use acronyms because the titles are really big, but MPDZ allows for a sales and use tax exemption for the construction, maintenance, expansion, improvement, or renovation of a media production facility at a qualified media production location over a 2-year period. So this is about infrastructure and buildings. This program is there for both our digital media companies as well as our live action companies, but it is indeed a sales and use tax exemption. I'll give you a couple examples going forward of what those types of facilities might be, but they include, not limited to, but animation, CGI studios, post-production studios and facilities, video game studios, sound stages, and production office space. So it could be a wide assortment of different, again, buildings and structures that content is made in, essentially. And then I can give you just an overview of the process that applicants to this program will go through. So the first step is for them to submit an application to the local municipality or county that has jurisdiction over the proposed location of whatever this building facility is going to be. Next step would be for the local city council or county commissioner's court to certify the project for local benefits. After that, the state's comptroller's office certifies the project has a positive impact on state revenue. And then from there, Media Production Advisory Committee recommends use of the exemption for the project. And then finally, our office, the Texas Film Commission, designates the location and certifies the project for the grant exemption. So all these steps, you can kind of see that the local community is very much involved in this process. The sales tax exemption involves both local taxes as well as state taxes. So the project wants to make sure that the community is on board and sees the economic impact that the renovation or the construction or the building or whatever it is that this media facility is going to do is going to put back into the community, so that everybody is on board and understands that, hey, this is definitely going to have a good impact and a reason to kind of waive that sales tax. So it gets worked out on the local level first, and then it comes to the state level before it's finalized. But yeah, so that's the general process of how that works. And we can move on to the second program that incentive program that we have here at the Texas Film Commission. So while MPDZ is about infrastructure and buildings, TMIP, which is the Texas Moving Image Industry Incentive Program, is about the actual making of the game, or it could be a TV show or a commercial, but in the realm of digital media, VR game or a type of project that people would actually consume. This is probably what most of y'all are familiar with when we talk about an incentive, or from our office. This is the program that I specifically work with, and I work with our video game applicants to this program. And as Matt has been going over, there's a lot that is under the umbrella of what we consider video games. So there is a process for applicants to this program, but to start with, what the program does is it provides qualifying productions the opportunity to receive a cash grant based on a percentage of that project's eligible Texas spend. So this program, not a sales tax exemption, but this program is a grant program, and it provides money essentially at the back end of the process of making the project. Second point to kind of highlight here is that Texas spend includes wages paid to Texas residents and payments made to Texas vendors. So there's a whole lot of Texas in this statement here. It's a really big part of our program and what we do here at the incentive, as part of the incentive team here. But the key thing here is that what we're incentivizing is the wages that are paid to the people that live and work in the state of Texas, and to the companies that these businesses are putting money into to make their video game, for example. So eligible Texas spend is literally, truly wages to Texas, residents, and money going to Texas businesses. That's what we're incentivizing. Kind of the third point up here is that those grants that are paid out are percentages that vary by the project's budget level. And again, this is the Texas budget level, but it basically means that the higher the budget, the more money that video game studio is spending to make that project here in the state of Texas, kind of the higher their grant rate is going to be. And then the fourth point here is that grant payments are issued upon the completion of a review of the project's tax expenditures. We have part of that statement there highlighted, bolded. We could put like red flags, not red flags, but like big explanations there, because we do review all of the documentation of what a project is considering as their Texas spend. Again, that's the wages paid to their Texas residents. It's the money that they're spending at their businesses to make this game. And the review is a process, so that all those things are reviewed by us here at the Film Commission, but also by the Office of the Governor's Compliance division as well. So there's state auditors that review our grant program as well as all the state grant programs, but all that is actually verified here at the state, in the state offices. So those are just kind of an overview of how the program is run. There are minimum qualifications that every project coming through our program has to meet. The big takeaway of this is that you have to make most of the project here in the state of Texas, and you have to be employing and hiring mostly Texas residents to do so, to come through this incentive program. So at least 60% of the total production days must happen here in the state of Texas, and at least 70% of the people making that project have to be Texas residents. So For instance, in a video game, like the artists and the designers and the programmers, all those people that are getting paid to make that game, most of them have to be here from the state of Texas. And we also verify with documentation that they indeed do live and reside here in the state of Texas on a permanent basis. And then the Texas spend minimum for a project that is a video game project is $100,000. So that's, again, wages and any kind of expenses that that game has here in the state of Texas. So that's just kind of an overview of what the minimum requirements are. And I can go on and talk to you just a little bit about the economic impact of these media productions here in the state of Texas. So this like one sheet here of information, this is for the life of our program up through August of 2020. We don't have the most recent year income included in this yet, but you get a good idea of kind of the impact of our media industries here in the state of Texas. And this is for all of our industry segments, both our digital media and our live actions. But you can see at the very top here that there has been $1.6 billion in in-state spending. And all this information is backed up with hard data from our incentive program. So we're not kind of guessing and estimating. This is information that we can draw from our actual incentivized projects. Of that in-state spending, you can see next to that over 150,000 jobs, Texas jobs, were created by those projects. And there's a 511% return on investment, which means that for every dollar we paid out from the state in grants, $5.11 was spent here in the state. So that's a pretty good return on investment for our media industries. So there's some smaller information down at the bottom of this page here under boosting local Texas economies. If you see in the corner, there's like a little building, and next to that it says 3.9 million. This is like a snapshot of one game that was made, the spending by that company in Houston for over 194 days. So that's probably mostly wages that they were paying to their people that made that one game in Houston during that 194 days. So that's one little kind of good piece of information. If you look at the other corner there under creating jobs and supporting local business, there's a fact at the very bottom corner there. It says number 4 grad school. So ranking of SMU Guildhall in Plano as a top 25 graduate school for game design. So this one sheet here, this information is available on our website. So if you want to take a little bit more closer look at some of that, as well as all the information about the programs, you can find that on our Texas Film Commission website. If you want to know how these companies are kind of impacting and what they're required for their incentive program. The one more piece of information that we can move on to just that shows you the impact of what these video games specifically have here in the state. And this information here is specifically for all of the video games that came through the program, our Team Up program, up and including through this past year, 2021. So we've had 184 video game projects complete the incentive program. Over 6,000 permanent Texas residents worked on those projects. There's been over $36 million in grants paid out, and over 300 million in verified Texas spend that was generated by those game companies that we are able to verify through the Team Up program. So the return on investment for those are $7.83 for every dollar of Texas spent. So that's just a little bit quick snapshot of our incentive programs, what they are, and kind of the impact that these digital media industries can have for our state and our communities. And with that, Matt, I will give it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. Yeah, that's Perfect. Michelle and our other members of our incentive department live and breathe this information and these numbers. So I could not have even begun to imagine to say it better myself. But yes, so thank you for those numbers. And then finally, I just wanted to briefly touch, I know we are running a little bit over because of my long-winded presentation, but we do also, of course, have our Texas production directory. You can both search the directory and list yourself if you're a crew member. Basically, what you need to know is, we have a lot more information on our website, but also we did recently update categories within the TPD for short. To include a lot more digital media specific positions such as animation, VFX character animator, and extended reality companies. So, we're much more better positioned to have those types of jobs and companies fulfill the TPD. And then finally, of course, we have our job hotline. It is updated weekly, if not bi-weekly, and sometimes even daily, quite honestly, by our wonderful marketing department. So it's a great place to check for digital media positions that are currently hiring. And if there's something that you know about in your community that we don't have up, let us know about it so we can promote it. And these are some of the sections, and then obviously some rules about listing on the hotline and everything. But of course, we have more information on our website about that. And then overall, if anyone is wondering, how can I get certified? Is this something that I can, get the gold star for? We will be officially announcing the digital media friendly program and the steps to get certified next year. So definitely stay tuned for that. So it'll be another thing to join our film friendly, music friendly, and tourism friendly designations next year, we're hoping. So with that, I hope we answered a few of your digital media questions, but I wanted to invite everyone to turn back on their cameras and, feel free to turn back on your microphones and, ask any questions you had in the chat, anything like that, if anyone has anything. And while you're doing that, obviously here is our contact information, both Michelle and myself. And then of course, a great way to keep in touch is through our newsletter. So, make sure that you're subscribed to that. And if you are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we have a LinkedIn, which I need to add here. We are on all those platforms as well. But I wanted to open it up for anyone. If anyone has anything, I'm opening the chat here just to make sure that there aren't any questions. But if anyone has anything, feel free to also shout it out. If not, we are right around the end time. So, definitely not a bad thing. I know I threw a lot of information your way. And again, I am not, oh yes, thanks y'all for the wonderful words of encouragement in the chat. I do not normally speak this much. So as you probably could tell right when Michelle took over, I had to drink like a gallon of water because I don't normally talk this much. Oh, I do have one here. How do you feel about XR stages and big studios coming, Line 204, etc.? Yeah, well, I think obviously, infrastructure is very important. That's why we have the MPDZ program, because those types of facilities, can lead to longer term jobs and projects and everything like that. So I feel like it's definitely a win-win for both the community and our industries. Again, making sure that those opportunities are as equitable as possible across the state for sure. So yeah, overall, I think it's a great opportunity. And if the community is on board, we love to see these types of that type of infrastructure pop up. And Janice, yes, I can definitely send you the presentation for sure, Janice. And okay, yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and right at the noon mark. I did not think that that was going to be possible, but right at the noon mark, we're going to go ahead and take a really quick beat. I think Stephen McCaig, who is behind the scenes, probably turning all the dials in our Rube Goldberg machine, will be transitioning over in just a few moments to our closing keynote conversation, elevating the visibility of your creative community, between our director, Stephanie Whalen, and Visit Fort Worth's Jessica Christofferson and Mitch Witten. So again, thank you to our sponsors, both Visit Dallas and AMP. We hope y'all learned a few things and enjoyed doing so in the process. Yes, great to see you too, Fran. Thanks everyone, and have a wonderful day, and we'll be back shortly in just a second.